This is it, the final video in the series called Cape to Key, about my journey from Cape Alava, Washington to Key West, Florida. I started on Cape Alava on the last of May 2025. Since then, I walked, paddled, and biked across the country to here, the Florida Keys. Last video I left you as I was finishing the Everglades and turning south along the western edge of Miami's suburban sprawl. The last few days of this trip were the miles that followed, pedaling south on US 1, the overseas highway, and following the road as it turned west along the course of the Florida Keys. As real as I have been in these videos, I was not so forthcoming to the people I met in real life about what I was doing. It was obvious to anyone I met that I was traveling. The backpack, the canoe, or the loaded down bike gave it away. When they asked where I was going, I would answer with something that wasn't technically a lie. On the Pacific Northwest Trail, I'd say I was walking to Glacier National Park. I was, but I wouldn't offer up the information that I would continue walking once I got there. The same went for the Continental Divide Trail, except I'd say my hike would end at the Jefferson River without telling them I'd be paddling it to the Missouri. On the Missouri River, I'd say I was going to the next town or state, and on the Mississippi that I was going to the Gulf, leaving out the part that I would continue by bike from there. My justification for the fib is that it took the spotlight off of me. My general rule is that whoever I'm talking to knows something or many things that I don't, and I ought to listen, so I learn what it is. I tend not to waste time talking about myself while they're still holding on to their lesson. I would offer up the quick explanation of where I was going because people are usually just asking to be polite anyways, and then we can get down to the business of exchanging insights about life and interesting lore. The other reason I held back on the truth is because I didn't need the judgment of someone who didn't think I could do it. I didn't want to share my story with someone if they're only going to grill me on the possible risks that lay ahead. If they tried to warn me of a danger, I learned to check their advice with a quick Google search later and to mostly ignore their well-intentioned cautions. They may have tried to stir up fear in me to cover their conscience in the event that I turned up missing, as if to say, I tried to warn that fool. To avoid the overly concerned and well-meaning warnings, I was brief in describing my plans. A lie, if you will. If it was someone who got it, thought my trip was cool, and maybe had done some traveling of their own, I didn't hide the truth. To those, I spelled out my route, timeline, and told them about this YouTube channel where they could follow my progress. As I picked up Dottie in Mississippi, and we finished on the river together, things started to seem a whole lot more feasible than they did back in Washington. In Louisiana, the bike shop owners had no doubts about Dottie's and my ability to cover the 1,250-mile route. As we progressed down the Florida Peninsula, our plan seemed very doable, even leisurely to the folks who asked where we were headed. Key West was, after all, just a few days' ride down the road, and the weather was decent. The end was always in God's hands, but here in the Keys, there was little doubt he would protect me the rest of the short way down. Instead of glazing over the questions about what I was doing, I had to face the very real thought of what I was going to do once I was done. I've processed my experiences by writing about them and telling the stories on video. When the trip was lonely, cold, or overwhelming, the process of writing about it brought comfort, warmth, and order. Lately, though, the road eased up and gave Dottie and I little trouble on the final miles. It wasn't the trip that was difficult anymore. What was hard to process is that it was ending, and I felt like I was coming unmoored without my mission. The words to describe this feeling evaded me. I silently rode, most times not thinking at all. Key Largo, Plantation Key, Isla Morada, Marathon Key, and the 7-mile bridge all went by as we rode past bridge fishermen into a stiff breeze over turquoise water. On the dark green mile markers beside US 1, the numbers ticked down toward 0 with every mile we came closer to the end. It all seemed routine, a continuation of the 8 months I had already been out there. I tried to process it. It was ending, and I found myself wishing not for more roads, but that the time I had could have lasted longer. We saw manatees, iguanas, gulls, pelicans, egrets, fishermen, and RVers with a fondness for fat cigars and tiny dogs. My favorite locals were the key deer, an endangered species of whitetail that adaptation shrunk into a dwarf suited to subtropical climates. I captured all I could as my days on the journey dwindled and the end came into sight. I mused at it all. After everything the mountains, rivers, and roads had thrown at me, there would be no final challenge. This was it, and it was all quite tame. The only misfortune of the whole thing is when I launched my drone to capture a vivid sunrise, and the battery inexplicably went from 38% in a stable hover with little wind to 0% and dropped into the Florida Bay, taking the memory card with all my footage from the last few days with it. As much as this hurts to lose, I chose not to let it detract from my day or be anything more than the latest mishap. It wasn't my fault. In 6 years of flying drones, I have never seen one do that. And I chalked it up to mechanical failure. It was gone, and I was on my way without it. I pulled to a stop at the buoy marking the southernmost point in the United States on February 8th. I stepped off my bike and saw the few yards between me and the buoy as the last of a journey of more than 6,000 miles. To my wry amusement, there was a line of people waiting to document their moment in front of the structure as well. I would have to wait. I was completely anonymous among them, another tourist in line, surrounded by others with a humbling amount of indifference to what I had done to get there. I stood with the landmark that had been my destination since 253 days ago, 6,370 miles behind me on Cape Alava, Washington. If I subtract the 21 days I left the trail to go see family, that is a 27.46 miles per day average, including days I traveled 0 miles due to weather or misfortune. 27.5 miles of ground, day after day and week after week, carved a deep groove of routine and purpose. Was it hard? Yes, it was. But you want to know something? I loved it. I need a purpose every morning, and that's exactly what crossing the country by my own strength gave me. And no, it wasn't easy. Now, I need to find a new purpose. I wasn't always honest about what I was doing to those that I met because I know that sometimes God has other plans. I think part of me feared that if I went around blabbing my plans, they would never have come true. I would say I was striving for the horizon just to get busted up and go home as the fool they had tried to warn. So I played it safe. Said I was only going to the next town and kept a low profile in real life while I told the whole story here on YouTube and on my blog. I prayed every day not for more blessings, but that I would learn to accept God's will, finish or not. Perfect resignation to the divine will was my intention from the start and stayed in the front of my mind all the way to the buoy. I guess I learned something about trust in all this. Maybe I would have gone home the busted up fool who never got to the end of his map. But that doesn't matter. It's not up to me if I can make 1,000 miles or a single step. My place is to do what I can, trust in the Lord, and accept whatever He gives me. Count my blessings and bless His name. I have memories that still make me shudder and tear up about days I didn't know if I was going to make it. Mountain passes in Washington, predators in Montana, the prospect of winter in the North Country, losing my canoe in North Dakota, and a particularly violent tent-flattening storm in Mississippi are the first few that come to mind. But on every one of those black days, I had blessings to count through and through. Many times, those blessings were people who helped me when I needed it most. They gave me a ride, a place to stay, a meal, shared their expertise, sent a message to encourage me, or provided gear to see me through. They are models of generosity I strive to emulate. To them and to you, I owe my biggest thank you.
In the merry month of June, from me home I started, left the girls at June, nearly broken-hearted, salute to father dear, kiss me darling mother, drank a pint of beer, me grief and tears to smother, then off to reap the corn, leave where I was born, cut a stout blackthorn to banish ghosts and goblins, a brand new pair of brogues, rattling o'er the bogs, frightening all the dogs on the rocky road to Dublin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hut the hare and turn her down the rocky road, all the way to Dublin, whack for Lolly-Ra. In Mullingar that night I rested, limbs so weary, started by daylight, me spirits bright and airy, took a drop of the pure, keep me heart from sinking, that's the paddy's cure, whenever he's on for drinking. To see the lassie smile, laughing all the while, at me curious style, 'twould set your heart to bubbling, and asked if I was hard, wages I required, till I was nearly tired of the rocky road to Dublin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, had the hare and turn her down the rocky road, all the way to Dublin, whack for Lolly-Ra, whack for Lolly-Ra.